Warning. The following is extremely addictive content. The original Savage Podcast may cause increased levels of success, happiness, and completely transform your life. You've been warned.
Welcome, everybody. It is another week on the Original Savage Podcast. I am so excited to be here. I told y'all we are going to switch it up a little bit. We're going baseball this week. We got a baseball guy here with us. And, man, I can't wait to draw the connect the dots. There we go. Draw the picture, connect the dots. From where we were in the football space to then the golf swing, and now we're going baseball. Again, I think that we're going to see a lot of parallels and you know, really be able to draw full pictures here whenever we get this perspective. So without further ado, Matt, why don't you tell your story, kind of talk about who you are, what you do, all that good stuff. Introduce yourself.
Well, first off, I just really appreciate you having me on. But for those who don't know, my name's Matt Ross. On all social media, my handle is actually ATS Performance, just stands for All Things Sports Performance. And right now, I am a retired baseball player and current just online remote coach and like to make content. My story, I grew up playing baseball, every single sport under the sun my entire life. It wasn't until like late middle school, early high school, I kind of found like, okay, I'm much better at baseball than I am anything else. So it just kind of kicked off from there. And then to make an extremely long story short, I had an issue with the very first college that I went to. They actually had 104 players on the team that I did not know about. So that was a shock. Left there and then eventually made my way around the country. Went to a junior college out in Colorado. And I was actually going to come back and play for my dream school, University of Georgia. But that's when COVID hit. So obviously that offer got pulled and everyone else just had to take it off. So that sent me out to Nebraska, where I then had my second shoulder injury and a concussion, which eventually ended my career. And it led me into creating more content. And now I've found the thing that I didn't even know was a job when I started. Yet I can actually use this as a full-time job and continue to teach the next generation what I wish that I knew when I was their age.
Man, that is exactly what, again, listeners, I know I talk about it all the time. Sorry. That's exactly what I try to get across to like my 9-year-old. So I got a 9-year-old, plays baseball, plays basketball. He plays a lot of things. He'll try any sport and he's pretty decent at it. But he loves baseball. And I try to tell him, like, dude, I wish that I had this level of knowledge back when I was playing. Like, I wish that I know, like, I will put in the work for you as long as you do the actual work. Like, I will do the research. I will figure it out because I wish I knew this stuff. Like, I would practice, but I didn't know what the hell I was practicing. I was just hitting a ball
Yeah.
off the tee, like into our barn. We had a barn out back, and my dad would get mad because I would hit it I didn't have a net. I would just hit a ball into the barn and like try to knock the wood off the side of the barn. Like, I didn't know what I was doing, but I was hitting. Right, I'm just gonna keep hitting. This has got to be working on something, right? I'm putting in the effort. I got to get better, right?
Exactly.
And
Exactly. And I grew up in a small town in Georgia, and my entire life I had just been coached by dads. Like my little league coach was also my doctor. Like we just had to figure it out on our own. And I still love every single one of my coaches to death. But I had to figure it out on my own, which then in hindsight led me down the path of becoming very obsessed with finding the actual truth.
it was very late, like in my baseball career, I guess. So I played until I was 18 and then switched to golf. I know it's weird, but um, I played until I was 18, and it was maybe 16 years old before I ever got a lesson from somebody that knew what the hell they were talking about. And that was just because I knew him and he played pro ball. Like that was the first time I ever got any kind of work done with somebody that knew what they were talking about. Like, we grew up, we grew up with him or his family, and it just so happens he got hurt and came back home and was done with pro ball. And so I was able to get some work in with him and actually start to learn some real lasting information, right? Like even even though our high school was really good, like our high school was always sending kids to college to play and whatnot. Like we always had really good talent around us. Um, we've had plenty of kids go pro, plenty of kids go play high level college, but like it still wasn't. There was no like the only batting cage around was a guy who ran a company in our hometown that had a big shop, and he put up a batting cage for his kids and would let other people come and use it. Like it's not like we had some big performance center like everybody does now. Like there just wasn't the information.
Yeah, exactly. And it's wild. I mean, obviously, there are a lot of bad stereotypes around social media and the internet today. Uh, but at the same time, there's so much information out there now that it's incredible for the room to grow. Like, as a 10-year-old, you can learn what, like, Alex Bregman, one of the best hitters in the league right now, is doing. Like, that's insane to think about.
Oh yeah, I mean just the advancement of like video and then video to launch monitors and that type of data, and then to really take it into technical work and form and understanding of biomechanics and kinesiology and all that crazy stuff. Like it really has propelled things from one level to a completely other. And yeah, I mean, it's a crazy time to be a kid, I guess, because yeah, I definitely didn't have any of this stuff whenever I was growing up for sure.
Oh, and then the whole travel ball scene too. I mean, that could be a podcast within itself.
Hey,
But
I'm against 9 and 10-year-olds playing AAU baseball. In case people were wondering my stance on that.
hey, it's just like I understand. You want to play and you want to get around the best competition, but at the same time, they don't need to be sports specific at this point. They don't need to win an eighth place ring. Just go and enjoy the game, and yeah, you'll get better along the way. But we don't need to be doing an assessment on a 7-year-old to worry about what their hip is doing during their swing.
Yeah,
It's like he's a kid. Go play basketball or something. Just be an athlete.
yeah. I was talking about this in like a business perspective the other day, and it's like people are starting to understand that like the one track mind, or not the one track mind, but the one track journey is becoming less and less desirable. Like the people that literally are go to high school for marketing, go to college for marketing, work at a marketing firm and do nothing but marketing. That's all they do. Or do nothing but sales their entire in one industry. They do nothing but one specific track from A to B, and that's all they've ever done. But they're becoming less and less valuable in the workplace because they don't have the insight, they don't have the experience, they don't understand how to solve problems the same way as somebody that has been a welder and a carpenter and a this and a that, and then they went from the blue collar world to now they're in the business world running their own business, and then they get into consulting and they've done this and this, right? Done all these different things, so they have experience connecting with the blue collar workers, the business owners, the white collar guys. Like they can connect to everybody, they can talk to everybody, and it's becoming more and more valuable. But the same thing goes for professional athletes or people that end up as professional athletes. I mean, if you talk about Patrick Mahomes, they say that until high school, football was his third sport. He literally wasn't even that good at football. In retrospect, obviously he was good,
Right.
but as far as like what he was most looked at for, everybody looked at him for baseball and basketball. One, because his dad played professional baseball. I'm sure that had to do with it, but they weren't even really talking about his football skills until high school. And it was the same way with the most well known baseball player that I went to high school with, Chris Archer. He he had offers to play football in college too. He had a baseball scholarship offer and he had a football scholarship offer. He didn't play basketball because it overlapped baseball season and he loved baseball. But he could dunk. I mean, he runs. He probably don't run a 4.40 anymore, but he ran a 4.40. Like, he's just athletic. He played everything since he was a kid. Like, there's no, like, that one track mind situation doesn't work, especially long term. Like, long term, it definitely wears on, really wears on things. And even even like, I was looking it up for this. It's basketball season for my son right now, and I was looking up like USA basketball, like training drills and stuff like that. And even USA basketball for kids his age recommends no more than 5 months of basketball, no more than 5 consecutive months, and it's only
Weird
like
how that works.
3 hours. They recommend 3 hours of organized basketball a week. That's 2 practices a week and a game.
And in my opinion, they're right. Like
I agree.
it, yeah, it's insane to think about the things that kids are doing nowadays. And like, look at Mookie Betts. Dude is a multimillionaire and incredible baseball player. Not only has he been regarded as one of the best athletes there is, he can dunk a basketball. He can run any route that you want on a football field. And on top of just being like a good athlete, he can bowl. Like, he arguably a professional bowler.
Oh no,
And
he is bowled in professional tournaments before, for
yeah,
sure.
it's unreal. So like, to think about what the best do and how they do it, I understand why people would want to go and like, I got to do just baseball because this is what they are. There's more to it, and especially what you said about business as well, and college, and only getting this singular degree, and that's what you do your entire life. Like, I went to college for a business administration degree. I was going to get a minor in finance, and I graduated with a 4.0. I have learned more in the past year of running my own business than I did in those years in college. And
Absolutely.
it made everything.
Absolutely. There's nothing. So I mean, so that leads me to the same thing. Same kind of the same story as with my brother. My brother is a lawyer, went to law school, right? Gets out of law school, passes the bar, whatever. And he didn't go like right away to a firm. He was like kind of doing his own thing. But like literally the first case he ever had, somebody in another county saw him somewhere, walks up and says, "Hey, you practice law in Johnson County, right? It's where we live." And he's like, "Yeah." He goes, "Hey, we got a case there. We don't come down there, so can you take it?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure." He had no idea what he was doing, but he went to law school. But he had no idea what he's doing. He says, "This is what he says." He says, "I got to the courthouse. I saw a bunch of guys in suits, so I followed them. I figured they were the lawyers." He said, "And I just started following them because I didn't know where I was supposed to go." He said, "And I ended up following them into a judge's chambers." And the judge is like, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" He's like, "Oh, I didn't really know where to go. I'm supposed to, somebody just kind of gave me a case and I'm trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do." Luckily, he says that those lawyers walked into a judge's chambers and there was an assistant DA there, and she went to law school with him and knew who he was and was like, "Oh, hey, I'll help you." And like they worked it out, like whatever. But law school, right? Oh, prestigious, all this stuff, right? Yeah, you get out, he has no idea how to actually do the job. Like,
Exactly.
it's one of those things that you can't beat experience. I think experience is 100% the most important thing by far. But kind of what you were talking about right there leads me into the question I kind of ask everybody, and that is, in your opinion, what is the one thing that is the catalyst to really reach your potential, the catalyst to really give you lasting change, or to be able to take you to that next performance level? Like, what is just that one crucial piece, and I love asking people that work with everybody, right? Like you are online, you're working with people in Georgia, you're working with people everywhere. So you see all these different perspectives. And that's why I love asking coaches and trainers that work with such, large audiences. What is that one thing in your opinion that sets the tone for that real change or that real performance?
In my experience, one of the biggest things that I've seen that separates the highest and the elite level players from even just great players is confidence. And I know that that is a special word that is just somewhere out there in the ether, and only if you could grab it you would have it. Um, but I developed this saying that I tell everyone that I come into contact to is that confidence comes from your preparation. So if you're not confident, you're not prepared, or at the very least, you didn't prepare the right way. So it's not saying that you go 0 for 4 and then think in that fifth at bat, my life is, gonna die forever. Like it's just knowing that yes, there are going to be bad days, but I will be able to come back from it. Because even in my career, I struggled with the idea of like I went 0 for 4 and felt like I couldn't even hit a watermelon if it was thrown at me. But what I know now is that confidence isn't taking the fifth at bat and then thinking I can keep doing the same thing over and over. No, you're going to have to change something. Like something isn't working. But confidence is knowing that I know how to prepare, I trust my training, and I trust that whatever I do, I will be able to adapt to. So no matter the sport or even in business, I think being able to change and get to where you want to be is prepare the right way. Whatever that looks like in your life, that's up to you. But if you can prepare for whatever is ahead, you will have the confidence to do anything.
So I think that, really what led me, again, what you were saying led me into saying now is the perfect time to ask this question. And you were talking about Mookie Betts, right? And how he's able to be at least better than average at a lot of different things, if not elite at a lot of different things. Um, and that just to me stands out as when you're truly elite at one thing, you understand what it takes to get there. And you can then become elite at everything because you understand what it takes to get to that point. For me, I've always said I personally don't believe that there's anybody out there that cannot become elite. You might not be the greatest of all time. Obviously, I'm not going to be the greatest basketball player of all time. I'm 6'2", not 6'9", right? Or whatever, right? So I understand that. But that doesn't mean I can't become an elite player for who I am, right? Did I do that? No, because I don't really care about basketball. Just is what it is. Like I play, but I don't care, right? And you have to be able to care. You have to care. You have to, like you said, preparation. And I think that if you don't love something, you can't put in the proper preparation, the proper time, the proper work that it takes to get to that elite level.
No, that is exactly right. And, even freak athletes, this is actually a funny story. I'm glad you brought up basketball. I played basketball my entire life, all the way through high school and everything, varsity, whatever. And my highest scoring game was 6 points. 4 of those were from free throws. The other one was a layup. I couldn't shoot to save my life, but I was a really, really good defender. And, I hate to tell this story, but it's hilarious. So, Mecole Hardman, the wide receiver for the Chiefs that just caught the game-winning touchdown, he went to my rival high school, and we graduated together. So grew up together, played travel basketball, and my junior year, you want to talk about a freak athlete? It was him. Playing down on the post, whatever, on defense. He gets the ball on the baseline and in one motion jumps over me. And luckily, he missed the dunk. Otherwise, I would have ended up on SportsCenter. But that was my realization of like, okay, this isn't for me. So it's to your point of like, you can be above average in a lot of different things, but I wasn't willing to put in the work to get better at basketball. I enjoyed playing it, but I wasn't willing to. And even so much so that my senior year, I quit basketball early so I could focus on baseball. And it's finding your passion, but also being realistic of like, what actually has a shot at this.
Yeah, I think that, there's definitely that little bit of inherent skill or inherent, ability at something. But that's just typically what gets you interested in it, in my opinion, right? Like it's like, oh, kids stick to baseball or start to lean towards baseball or start to lean towards basketball, or somebody starts to lean towards sales or lean towards marketing because they've got a little bit of skill at it. And it comes easy. Again, I was talking to my son about something the other day, and it was like, listen, man, I know that you don't want to practice the stuff you're not good at. The stuff that comes easy, yeah, that's what you want to practice because it's easy and you're good at it. And we all like seeing good things happen. But in order to really get to that elite level, you've got to practice the stuff you're not good at. You've got to get
Yeah.
rid of the weaknesses or make the weaknesses less weak, right? And that's where, we were talking earlier and I didn't really bring it up then, but it's that personal understanding of who you are and what you're strong at. When you're talking about confidence, in my opinion, that's where it comes from. It comes from knowing exactly who you are and not questioning that, right? And being like, I am able to do this because I know for a fact that this is my thing. This is who I am to my core. And that's why you have that confidence because you've put in the work, like you said, the preparation and the work and all of that stuff. And that's what brings a lot of people confidence. They're confident because they know what they've done to get to that position. And I talk about that too, like for sure. Like when it's time to perform, the only thing that matters is performing. Don't think about all the
Right.
preparation. Don't think about all that stuff. Rely on that. Hey, it's time. I'm him. You know what I mean? To kind of quote pop culture these days. I'm him. Like I've done the work. It's time.
Exactly. And that I get so many messages. I never would have expected this, but I get so many messages every single week of players asking, like, hey, can you help with my confidence? And, I don't know what it would have been like to be a 14-year-old baseball player with access to all these different coaches, but to have the wherewithal to be like, I'm not confident, so I'm just going to ask a random stranger online. I understand, and I'm very blessed to be in the position that I am. But sometimes I just think to myself, like, what do you want me to give you? Like, what answer are you looking for here? Because if you ask somebody who's not confident, and like, what do you think is going to change? It's just like, oh well, I'll be confident one day. But when you switch it and ask the people who are confident, who are prepared, it's like, no, I had to work for it. It never just shows up. And that's why I love the parallels between business and sports and everything. It's just you got to put in the work, and unless you win the lottery, more than likely, it's not going to happen overnight.
That's that's such a parallel to something I was talking about a couple episodes back where there was never this like light bulb moment for me that said, "Hey, this is what you're supposed to be doing." People want you to talk to them. They want you to give your perspective. They want this side of you where you're giving your insight. I didn't think anybody cared what I had to say for a long time because I don't know, I'm just me, and I don't think that way. Yes, I'm confident, but I don't think like, oh, I'm the guy that everybody needs to be around. Um, I'm one of those that's just like, hey, listen, if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. Whatever, it is what it is. But there was never a light bulb moment. It was more soldering wires into a circuit board. It was this little piece, this little piece, this little piece, connecting all of those little pieces. And then it was like, once you finally got done with it and you plugged it in, then it's like, oh, okay. It wasn't a light bulb. It was all of those things. And that's where the confidence comes from. It comes from performing under pressure. It comes from the preparation. It comes from, yes, the compliments sometimes. It comes from a lot of different little pieces and places. There's no, hey, let me ask Matt. Hey Matt, um, how can I be more confident? I don't know you. Like, if you didn't, like, you don't know the person. How can you make them more confident if you have no idea about the person? Right. And I get it. Like you said, today's culture is compare culture. Like, everybody's comparing everybody, whether it's in baseball, whether it's in basketball, whether it's in, the business world. Everybody's comparing everything to everybody else. It's like, hey, get out there and see what your competitors are doing. Get out there and see what this is doing. This, da, 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 da. And then you say, oh my gosh, I'm a small business owner and I've only got 1,000 followers on Instagram, or I've only got 1,000 views on this post, or whatever it might be. Versus, man, the guy down the street, he's got 10,000. Okay. But are his 10,000 putting his business ahead of yours? Are you actually in competition with him? Is he somebody that is competing, or is it somebody you can collaborate with? Is that somebody that, maybe your products would pair well with his products? Are you in direct competition? Because I've never met somebody that goes and only shops at one store or only eats at one restaurant. I've never met somebody that goes and buys one thing. Even if you go to the store for one thing, you're probably going to buy more than one. It's just how we are. It's the same thing in sports, especially now. You get online, you see an 8-year-old, videos of an 8-year-old. Oh, this is the fastest 8-year-old in the country. Probably not. You ain't seen every 8-year-old in the country.
Exactly.
Like, or man, this kid's 15 years old throwing 85. Cool. Is he going to make it to 18? Who knows? There's been plenty of kids that threw 85 at 13, 14 years old, and they never made it anywhere because they blew their arm out.
Exactly. And that's the thing, like, when talking about business as well, one of the biggest misconceptions when it comes to social media is that if you have a large following, you're making a lot of money. Now, is it easier to get leads? Yeah, probably. But that mainly comes from just knowing how to make a good video. But I have over 180,000 followers across 3 platforms. And it wasn't until 2 months ago that I started doing any sort of sales, any sort of sales, because people follow me for free information, not because they want to pay me something. And that's what I met my now business coach, and it completely changed my life from here on out. But having that massive following, and if you are a small business owner with only 1,000 followers, but buddy down here has 50,000, well, 50,000 people chose to follow him because they liked something about what he posted, not because he's selling something. Doesn't mean it's 50,000 customers. It's just 50,000 strangers that saw him on the internet. So to your point too, it's like, why are there so many baseball coaches successful? Because we can all be different. Like, there are guys that come into like our facility that also hit with the guy down the street. And it's not, there's no any sort of bad will that we wish on anyone. It's just, A, the nature of the kids want the extra work, but also, like, there's room for both of us because we can't be here 7 days a week. I certainly don't want to be, at least. So, but they want to train 7 days a week, so they got to go somewhere else.
What it comes down to in both of the scenarios is perspective. And everybody knows that's my big thing is perspective. It's having that other set of eyes and who speaks to you. So in the training world, for the most part, in the training world, whether it's business, athletics, whatever, most information is rinse and repeat. Most information you can get from 4, 5, or 6 different sources. But it's who do you connect the best with? Whose way of wording, whose message gets across to you in a specific way, right? And that's where, like I talked about earlier with the circuit boards, that was one of the things, that was one of the pieces that I didn't get. I was like, why would people want to listen to me? There's all these other people that have bigger followings or bigger names or whatever that, but one of those pieces was when I would train somebody, and this is also a piece that like at first was kind of discouraging to me. It's when I would train somebody or when I would work with somebody on increasing their sales or increasing their efficiency potentially, right? It was, oh man, that seems so simple. Why didn't I think of that? Oh, that makes so much sense. I'm so glad you said it that way. And that was again one of the plugins that shifted and shaped where I'm going. It's one of those things. It's like, oh, okay, now I get it. But at first, like someone saying, "Oh, that's simple. That's so simple," made me like, "Well, I can't sell simple, but you can.
Right.
But you can, right?" And I posted that the other day or a while back actually now, but I posted Albert Einstein's quote: "True genius is taking something complicated and making it simple." True, and then there's another quote. I can't remember whose it is right now. I'll find it maybe and put it up on the screen. But it's the same premise. It's to show you have a full understanding of something is not to be overly complicated. It's to be able to simplify it for everyone to understand.
Right. And for anyone out there that is on baseball Twitter, will definitely understand this. There are probably about 4 to 8 big names on Twitter that will argue till their fingers fall off from typing about a baseball swing. And it's to your point about it depends on who you connect with. How am I going to tell Aaron Judge that he's wrong in the way that he thinks about a swing? Yet Barry Bonds over here thinks literally the exact opposite swing. But yet they're two of the best ever, or like arguably. But people will lose their minds over, no, you got to do this move. You got to do. The goal is the same. Science and physics tell us that the best way to hit a baseball is to be on plane with the pitch as long as possible. It's simple physics. Now, how do you get a player to do that? That's the biggest question. And that's where all these arguments come from. And as I said, anyone out there on baseball Twitter will know. If you boil it down to you're trying to understand different mental cues to get a player to do something, not this is the right way to swing. Because people will see Aaron Judge's swing and think 2 different things. I actually put a post up a couple weeks ago. It's at over 6 million views now. It was on top of one another, a swing from Aaron Judge. And I said, which one is the out and why. It was just two different swings that he hit. Like, which one is the out? People lost their minds over which one it was. It's like, no, he dipped his shoulder here. No, he stayed through the ball on this one. They were both home runs. And yet it shows how different people can see the exact same swing and come to their own conclusions.
So if you haven't seen it and you're listening to this podcast, go after it's over or pause this and go do it. On my website, there is a free training on perspective. The reason I bring that up is I talk exactly about what you just said. Didn't know you were going to say it, but exactly what you were talking about. So I talk about the golf swing and about feel versus real, which we covered in previous podcasts. But I say this the same thing in baseball. It's just not called the same. It's just not called feel versus real. The golf industry has everybody talks about feel versus real. Feel is real. They don't talk about that in the baseball swing as much. But exactly what you said. What he feels to accomplish the real of being on plane as long as possible, it doesn't matter what he internally feels. As long as it accomplishes the goal of staying on plane, that's all that matters. And in that training, I talk about turn on Baseball Tonight, turn on all of that commentary, and you're going to see A-Rod and David Ortiz and all of them arguing over the baseball swing. And I had Aaron Judge in mind when I talked about that because I know everybody wants to hate on Aaron Judge and his swing coach. I know it's like the most controversial thing in the world, but that's exactly what it is. He feels a certain way to accomplish something. It's his internal feel versus the reel of the camera. But even sometimes, even when you don't perform perfectly, you get a perfect result in the form of a home run. Even if he doesn't do exactly what he's trying to do, he can still succeed. I mean, have you ever seen a broken bat single? Absolutely. His goal was to get on base, right? He got on base, and it was a terrible swing. You ever seen somebody hit a ball that was a ball? Yeah, of course. You shouldn't have swung at that. Shouldn't have swung. It was a ball. Got on base.
Vladimir Guerrero Sr. hit a ball that bounced.
Right.
Like, he got so bad, it bounced in front of the plate, but yet he still hit it somehow and got on base. I mean, that feel versus real got kind of big about 5 years ago, but then got shut down really quickly. That the same idea of, like, I don't care what you feel, like, this is how it actually is supposed to go, and people got wrapped back up into that. I still believe in feel versus real because I'll tell my athletes two completely different things. Like, I had someone in here last night, actually, has a massive uppercut swing, and kept missing under the ball. Shocker. But I told him, like, dude, I want you to hit it, just like a hard line drive, but to the bottom of the L screen. That is your goal. Bottom of the L screen, just destroy it. And he hit 5 balls in a row that were destroyed, just perfect line drives, and he was mad. And I was like, dude, what are you mad about? Like, I can tell that you're frustrated. He's like, well, I didn't do it. Like, I didn't hit the bottom of the thing. It's like, I didn't tell you that because I want you to actually hit the bottom of it. That's a ground ball. Ground balls are outs. No, but what you have to think is down so your body evens out, and then you can hit line drives. Like, that's the most consistent round you've ever had, yet you had to think that you hit a ground ball. It's wild how the mind works.
And so, and I also think that, like, not to get too crazy into baseball, like, or early development in baseball, but it comes down to coaching in an aspect of setting, and this is more probably of a leadership type of thing, right? It comes down to setting your players or your team or your salespeople or your business up for success, right? So for me, when I was coaching Coach Pitch, There's lots of coaches that would be out there lobbing the ball, lobbing the ball, lobbing the ball, underhanding the ball to their kids, lobbing the ball, getting 6 feet from them and tossing it to them instead of being back at the mound. And we would destroy people because I would teach kids, and it's not too my own horn, but it's just fundamentals of teaching them the right thing at the right times so that they can set themselves up for success. It's the same thing in leadership. It's the same thing in business, whatever. You have to set the stage so that your people can perform at an elite level. It doesn't matter if you have elite performers. If you don't give them the place to succeed, they're not going to, right?
Right.
If you go put a marathon runner in the middle of the ocean, he ain't got nothing to do. He's in the middle of the ocean. He can't run. Right? It's that, like you said, this huge uppercut swing. There's a guy near me that he likes to live through his kid. You can tell he wants to live through his kid, and he talks about how his kids this, that, and the other. They won like a rec league tournament, and he bought his team championship rings. What the heck is wrong with you? But anyways, his kid has a giant uppercut, and it's because he taught his kid to swing up to try to hit it over the team that, in coach pitch, generally all the kids are in the infield.
Right.
Or close to the infield. So he taught his kid to swing up because the kids can't catch pop flies. The kids can't, and then he'd lob the ball to him. So the lob works with his uppercut swing until the kid becomes 9 years old and he's got a kid throwing to him who ain't going to lob the ball.
Exactly.
Then it's over. Like, you're literally setting up a 6-year-old, 7-year-old to end up failing at 9 years old. That is so sad. But leaders do it every day. Leaders set their teams up to fail every single day.
Oh man, especially in sports, leadership is obviously a huge thing. But I actually think a lot of people get leadership wrong from a player perspective. Um, I've played on a lot of different teams all around the country, and no matter where you're at, you're always going to have a leader, which is obvious, like a coach, a boss, whatever. But when you're on your team, those people, like your boss, your coach, will always say, like, we need more leaders. Like, that's why we're not succeeding. Like, nobody's taking the bull by the horns. You got to grab the reins, and somebody's got to lead. I would be willing to bet that most of the time, it's not a leadership problem. It is a follower problem. And it is something that drove me up a wall when people would talk about it. It's like, we need more leadership. No, we don't. People just don't want to follow. Multiple teams, we had people that you would need to look after. You would need to lead. Like, they were the perfect model of what you should be. But you don't want to follow somebody you're on a team with. You want to become a leader because it's an ego thing. And my last year of college, we had a big team meeting, and I think if anyone hears this that played on that team would agree that there was a definite drinking problem with most of the team. Cared more about that than baseball. And we had this big team meeting, and the coach was like, we need more leadership. We need this. And I was like, no, we don't. We have 4 guys over here who actually do what they're supposed to do. But because we keep telling you that this is killing your performance, you just don't want to listen. It is not a leadership problem. We have leaders on this team. You just don't want to put your egos aside to say that I'm wrong and then follow the rest of them. Because there are going to only be so many leaders.
Absolutely.
1, 2, maybe 3. But you're going to have a whole bunch of followers, and you got to be okay to follow.
So this is something, and I love that you talked about that. And there's a 40 different things I want to touch on. I'm not going to obviously be able to touch on all of those, but this is something that I talk about 100%. It has to be total alignment in the sports world. A lot of the times, especially in like professional sports, they call it culture, right? It's all about the culture. You take a team that they're all professional athletes. They're clearly pretty good, right? But they lose all their games, or they lose all but one or two games. Is it a talent problem? No, it's not a talent problem. It's a culture problem, right? They don't mix well together, or the coaching is off, or the ownership is off, whatever it is. There's something off. There's a disconnect, because in professional sports you should have parity pretty well. You should have, you know, teams that are a little bit above average, teams that are average, and teams that are a little bit below. You should not have one team that's excelling beyond belief and one team that is failing beyond belief, because that's just not how it works in actual performance levels. But when you have a culture problem, people fail beyond belief. When you have great culture, you succeed beyond belief. And what does that is alignment. Everybody is on the same page. Everybody believes in the same things. So, like you say, we need more followers. That can be true, but everybody doesn't have to be a follower. You can have a lot of leaders. You can have 4 leaders, 5 leaders, whatever it might be, but everybody understands their role. You're the leader of these people. You're the leader of these. You're the leader of this. You lead the other leader, right? But in an organization, it comes from the top down. Whether you're in college and that's the athletic director, whether you're in professional sports and it's the GM, whether you're in business and it's the CEO, the executive team, the managers, the sales team, the marketing team, every single person has to be on the same page, or you will not get peak performance. And again, that's what this is all about. That's what this whole podcast is all about: peak performance, optimum performance. Can you operate without having everybody in alignment? Yes, of course you can. But why would you strive to be less than perfect? Why would you strive to be underperforming, right? I'm not saying that you're always going to do it. Again, Aaron Judge hit a home run on a ball he probably shouldn't have swung at. Aaron Judge's swing was off a little bit, and he still hit a home run. Like you said, everybody's arguing, this is wrong, this is wrong, he did this wrong. It wasn't a perfect swing, but he hit a home run, right? I'm not saying it's got to be perfect execution, but striving for it is what gets you to be able to excel even when you make mistakes.
Right. I think even to that point, what in the sports aspect of it, what does perfect look like? Well, if we're talking baseball or even basketball, if you have the perfect form, it's great. You're going to look good doing it. But are you on time for the fastball? If you're late, you're late. You're screwed either way. And that's something that I wish that I knew earlier on in my career, because what was I a good player? Yeah, when I had my chance to go D1, and obviously the pandemic took that away. But I went through such a horrible mental health crisis almost those last 2 years, that had I known what the actual goal was, of instead of being perfect on the field, which obviously isn't going to happen in baseball. It's be perfect in the preparation to give me the ability to succeed. Because I started to see my career slip away from me like those last 2 years, and I couldn't handle it. I can't now, but couldn't handle it at the time. And I wanted to prove everyone wrong so bad that even if I went 1 for 3 that day, it's like that was a bad day. 2 for 3, but I still struck out on 3 pitches. Like, and it held me back tremendously, and obviously it shows that I did not play well.
It's perspective.
Because of it. Yeah, exactly.
Understanding perspective, right? A 300 hitter is a great hitter, right? And if you go 2 for 3, and I'm guilty of it too. Whenever I play baseball, I mean, I would get mad at that one that I missed, whether it was situationally or whatever. But perspective wise, if you're 2 for 3, you're 600. Unheard of. That don't happen, right? But we're always judging hitters on that specific game, so hitters judge themselves on that one specific game, right? And I think that that's the issue is the outside perspectives affecting our internal perspective, and again, that disconnect and they don't align, so we can't perform at the peak where we want to because of that. Like, even 1 for 3 is still 333. That's still good. But if you hit 1 for 3 in a game, you're not on the headlines. Nobody's saying you had a great game. But if you did that all season, you probably have the highest average on the team.
Mm-hmm. Weird how that works.
Consistency, right? So it's one of those things you got to take that step back, right? You got to take that step back and say, all right. And obviously in the heat of competition, you can't do that sometimes, right? In the heat of competition, you can't do that. But you can't let it affect your next outing. You can't let it affect, down the road, or how you prepare, or whatever it might be, right? Like, you can't let it mess with you. Same thing like if you're playing a doubleheader or something. You can't be like, "Oh my gosh, I was so bad last game. I got," and change what you're doing completely. And what another thing that, are where we were just at and what we're talking about that I wanted to say was, obviously it just happened now when we were recording this, but obviously this is coming out afterwards. We pre-record, but the whole Travis Kelsey bumping Andy Reid thing in the Super Bowl, right? Everybody is, oh my God, how disrespectful, yada, 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 blah, 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 about how he's a selfish player, this, that, and the other. But from an athletic standpoint, from a culture standpoint, Andy Reid came out and said, that's what we do to each other all the time. He just caught me off guard. If you ask Travis Kelsey now, did you mean to bump him that hard? He's probably going to tell you he didn't. He didn't mean to knock him over. But that's how they've communicated with each other. And Andy Reid's an ex-football player, guys. He can handle himself. Yes, he's older, but he played offensive tackle. He's okay. Like, that's how he understands the culture of how to communicate and how to get the best out of his guys. And he even said it, that he wouldn't change how Travis Kelsey is because that's makes him the player he is. He doesn't want him to be less passionate. He doesn't want him to say, Coach, you know what? It's all good. We fumbled the ball because somebody missed a block and I wasn't in the game. It's all right, man. I want to sit over here on the sideline. This is fun. No, he wants to be in the game helping his team win. That's what he was mad about. He said, I would have made that block and we wouldn't have fumbled the ball. We would have scored a touchdown.
Yeah.
That's not something most people want to be in the game for, is to block. Most people want to get the ball and get the praise and all of that stuff. He wanted to be in the game so somebody else could score, so somebody else would succeed, so that person wouldn't be down on themselves. You could see Pacheco's face afterwards, he was upset that he let the team down by that fumble. But again, it's a team. Other things happen that could have made him perform better. There could have been better blocks where he never got hit. There could have been better whatever, and he wouldn't have had that fumble from that exact angle, right? In order to cause that fumble, you have to hit him from an exact angle so your head, your helmet, or your hand, whatever it is, knocks the ball out. If there's a person in the way, you can't get that exact angle you need, right? There's a lot of things that could have happened that changed that from a team aspect to achieve the perfect performance. And so again, it goes back to that culture thing and everybody working together to achieve the perfect result or the perfect, you know, culture and performance level where everybody is there to succeed. You set the stage for people to succeed. Everybody's going off on this whole Travis Kelsey's this, Travis Kelsey's that. But if you look within the organization, everybody loves Travis Kelsey. The coach is laughing about it. They put him on stage, and after they win, the owner of the team is screaming, "You got to fight for your right to party," like with Travis Kelsey, celebrating it. If the coach, the owner, and the players were not all on the same page, and they saw that happen where he bumped the coach, the owner would not be celebrating that. The owner does not want Andy Reid not there no more, right? The owner knows that that's the coach that he is taking him to 3 Super Bowls or won 3 Super Bowls. The owner is not going to be excited if he doesn't understand that that's what it takes to win the championship. Stop sitting on your couch and telling them how to win championships because they're winning
Right.
championships. Hate them, love them, whatever. Don't tell them what to do because they got it figured out.
Yeah, and one thing that people forget is that Andy Reid did that exact same thing to Travis Kelsey early on in the year. But because it's a coach to a player, then it's okay. And to go on to that, what Travis Kelsey did, right or wrong, I don't care. That is earned. Like, you can't be a bench player and go scream at your head coach. Like, that's not going to work. But that is respect that is earned from just time and time again of not only proving yourself, but also a complete trust. Because not only in that moment does Andy Reid understand, and he's upset, obviously, like they just fumbled, but Travis Kelsey is letting go of his emotion. He's passionate, got it. But Andy Reid sitting there is like, he's right. And that's when you have to put your ego aside. Is like, yeah, if he was in the game, that probably wouldn't have happened, and I made a mistake. And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Like, are you willing to play your role? Are you willing to follow? Are you willing to do whatever you need to do? And can you just admit that you're wrong so we all can change?
Yeah, I mean, I think that man, what you're talking about is so many levels to it. One, putting your ego aside. Again, in that free training about perspective, I talk about when you really want to get down to how do you shift your perspective and start to unlock better performance. First step, put your ego aside, let go of your defense mechanisms, and be honest about who you are. Internal, all the way to your core, who are you? But the first step in that's ego has to go out the window. Defense mechanisms have to go out the window, right? That's the first step. The next layer of what you're saying that's super crucial is, and I think that we've kind of said the same thing, but we've kind of, it may sound like we're opposing each other, right? I say there can be lots of leaders. You say we might need more followers, right? But I think it's actually the ability to do both and to know when to do both. When do you need to step up and be a leader? And when do you need to sit down and be a follower? Because that is honestly what makes peak performance. And again, that is that perspective aspect and understanding perspective, understanding how people see you, understanding who you are, and understanding how people see you. Because if you are a true leader and you sit down and shut up, everybody else should sit down and shut up and listen to whoever it is that's talking, right? You don't have to be vocal to be a leader. Again, it's respect. If every player on the team respects you because you're the best player on the team, you ain't got to talk. They know you're the best player on the team. It speaks for itself. You can go sit down, shut up, and people should listen, right? Because you're the best player on the team. If you go out and start working, they should go out and start working, right? Because they know you're the leader, even though you're not saying anything. So it's knowing when to do both, right? When is it time to shut up? When is it time to step up and talk? When is it time to be a role player? When is it time to be a star? Not everybody's the same way. I'll, go back to the business side of things. In sales, especially, but customer service, sales, all of these things kind of play a role. You can't treat everybody the same way. It's never gonna work. There's times where you can be big personality, boisterous, aggressive. If you're dealing with somebody from New York and you go in there and go, hello, Mr. Jones. I'm here to just you're gonna get run over because they have big personalities. They're abrasive at times. That's the culture in New York is to get to it now. I ain't got time to waste. What are you here for? Right? They want to know now. Speed, speed, speed. But if you go to Miss Sally's down the street in some small town in Georgia or some small town in South Carolina, and you walk into a home of, two elderly people, they want to sit down and have a glass of sweet tea and talk for a little bit and, get to know you. How's your mom and them? You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
can't treat everybody the same way. You have to be adaptable and understand the perspective of who you're going at, right? So I'll just tell a real story about performance in a different light, right? Customer service. Everybody's had experiences with customer service that should be, relatable. I went to a fast food restaurant. I'm not going to blast them. Not that I have that much power or anything like that on my thing, but just to be nice, I went to a fast food restaurant and there was two cars in front of me. I was the third one. The only reason I know what time it was when I got there was because I remember getting an email right when I got there. Like when I was waiting in line, I looked at my phone and I saw an email come in. So I just happened to know what time it was because I got an email. Two cars in front of me. Takes them a little bit of time to go up there. Then I get to the order and they say, "Hey, wait just a minute." And I'm like, "No big deal. I'm responding to this email anyways, right?" And takes a few minutes to order. Then I pull around to the window, pay, and they say, "Hey, can you pull up?" Right. And then after a little bit, I'm not paying attention. I'm like watching something on my phone because I'm not paying attention to the time. I'm not worried about it, right? But then some people come in from outside and say, "Hey, you should have gone inside. We got here after you went inside and got our food." And that's when I paid attention to the time. And I saw what time the email was sent and I saw what time it was now. And then I'm like, okay. The guy comes out and just hands me the food and walks off. Little tiny things from a perspective standpoint, like you have to understand where your person's at, right? As a coach, you have to understand where your player is seeing things. How are they feeling in this moment? As a customer service person, you have to understand how the customer is feeling in this moment. How should you perform differently based on how they're seeing it? As a salesperson, who is my prospect? How do I have to come across to this prospect to get the preferred result? Right? In sales, it's closing the sale, having the client be happy about it. No, buyer's remorse. in customer service. You want that customer to feel like they were taken care of. As a coach, you want your player to go out and win the game, win the next game that they're in, right? How do you get that desired performance? In this situation, it was a 30-minute wait from the time I got in line in a drive-through to the time I got my food. They never did anything to try to make it better. Didn't offer extra sauce. This is a fast food restaurant that charges you for extra sauce, right? They didn't offer extra sauce. They didn't say, "Hey, can I refill your cup? You've been waiting a while. Let me refill your cup." None of that. Yet there was another time, maybe a week apart, where I ordered ahead at a different restaurant, went to pick it up. They forgot like a small piece of the meal. Like it was literally one little thing. They got everything right except for one. I called back, got the manager. The manager got on the phone and says, "Oh my gosh, can you come back to the restaurant?" And I said, "Yes, I can come back. It's fine." She literally gave me almost my entire order again to make up for the fact that I had to come back. That will stick with me forever, and so will the bad experience. They'll both stick with me forever for different reasons. And again, it's understanding where the person's at. Like if you order food, then you go and pick it up, or if you order food and you have it delivered and something's wrong, and they're like, "Well, can you come and drive back?" Every one of us is like, "No, I want to eat my damn food," right? We're always going to be in that frustrated mindset. So you have to elevate where you're at to make that person satisfied. In a sales position, if somebody is getting done being sold by a salesperson that's super pushy, you can't go in there and be super pushy. You have to understand where they're coming from, where they're seeing things, how that perspective is different. From a baseball perspective, you have to change your preparation for the teams that you're going against. Is that team coming off a loss? Is that team coming off a win? Who's pitching? Who's doing this? You have to prepare for every situation independently. You can't just be like, "Oh, I'm the greatest at this. I'm good at everything. I ain't got to prepare different. I'm going to do the same thing I do every day." It's never going to work.
Yeah, it's wild, like how the whole saying like hindsight's 2020, but looking back on once you finally learn this information and you put in the work and things start to change, you can look back and like, man, like had I known this earlier, who knows what would have happened. But at the same time, everything had to happen in that way for you to like learn the way that you learned. And going back to your customer service example, like for you to do your job, someone has to get upset. Like customer service sucks. There's no doubt about it. But being able, as you said, to have that perspective of like, okay, I know what it feels like when this goes on. I need to make up for it. And as you said, you're going to remember that experience, which is huge. And as you do that over time, that's so much more growth. And it's going back to like a sports perspective. It just goes back to knowing your role, like what we talked about. What do we need to do to make sure that we can grow, or at least in sports aspects, what do we need to do for us to win? And I like that you brought up the fact that, like, it might sound like we're disagreeing about the leaders versus followers thing, because you're right. The idea of like what you said, it's more about being able to adapt, I think is huge. I'll tie this back into business but give two examples. Like, if we talk about a baseball team, you're going to have at least one guy who is just a meathead, like loves to lift. He's massive. There's no doubt about it. That dude lives in the gym. More than likely, he's going to be the leader in that scenario. But, and not to put any stereotypes on a lot of people, typically speaking, there's something else that goes on, and let's just call it the classroom. Probably not the smartest guy, Okay, we're going to follow him when we're in the weight room. This is our guy. But when we're talking about study hall and classes and whatever, it's going to be someone different because that's when he needs the help. So being able to adapt there, and even to business, like your sales guys, you're going to have to do what you need to do to make the sale. Got it. You know that information. We're going to follow you for you to make our company the sales. But at the same time, you're going to need to sit down and listen to the finance guys if they have something to say, like, look, every single time you go out and spend over $1,000 on dinner, you close less. Whereas if you just take them down the street to a diner, that's typically you have a higher closing rate. As a sales guy, you cannot sit down in that meeting and be like, nah, you're wrong. I know what the books say. I listened to this podcast the other day that, no, we need to keep doing this. Like, here are the numbers. So you have to constantly adapt, and then we can go down that rabbit hole of whatever scenario we need to be in within business and sports of being able to adapt. But it comes down to, I think, the willingness to change. You know, to grow, by definition, something has to change. And how willing are you to change?
Absolutely.
Are you willing?
You can't stay where you're at and elevate. Like,
Right.
that's not how movement works.
Yeah, in a small business, do you want to make more money? Yeah, okay. Well, you need to change your sales tactics. You know, you might be the small business with 1,000 followers. You probably perfected your sales pitch. Why don't you perfect your content online? You're spending 20, 30 minutes editing it already. Why don't you spend an extra 15 minutes to make it a little bit better? I don't know, but it's hindsight is 2020. But I wouldn't change my path for anything. I definitely think that God has called me to teach and to coach, because it was very clear later on in my career that I have all this information. I have been blessed to learn from some of the literal best coaches in the world, but I wasn't able to apply it to myself. Okay, what do I do with that? Do I just give myself some pity and go on down the road? Or do I still try to use it for something positive? Can I still hit a ball 500 feet right now? Probably not. But can I try to help somebody else who is struggling with the exact same thing that I dealt with? Of course. And that's what I find more passionate in than I ever did in playing.
Yeah, it's more powerful when you can apply it to other people. Like, you're, as a one single person, you can't make the same impact if you're just performing the task. Like, you're not going to make the same impact nationally or globally or whatever if you're keeping everything to yourself and doing everything to yourself for yourself in that aspect. Same thing, like, culturally, like I said, if you're the leader, sometimes you have to step up and be a leader. Sometimes you have to be a follower. You can't just keep everything to yourself, right? You can't. That's not benefiting everybody. It's not benefiting the thing. It's that alignment, right? It's the alignment that's key. Everybody has to be on the same page, and it's perspective of understanding, like you said, the finance guys and the sales guys, they have to understand each other. Hey, you tell me what the numbers say, I'll execute, right? That's alignment. Is you do your part, I'll do my part, we'll make it work. If you execute perfectly, I'll execute perfectly, everybody wins. Right? Everybody wins in a scenario where there's total alignment. And it's the same thing going back to the customer service thing, like, again, they charge for extra sauce, right? D- is the CEO of that company going to say, "How dare you give somebody that waited 30 minutes a 25 cents sauce?" Or "How dare you give that person extra tea, extra sweet tea, or extra Coke, or whatever?" It's just little things that, like, yes, maybe it touches the bottom line a little bit, but customer retention is more important in perspective, from top down, the perspective is short term versus long term. Typically, up at the top, they're looking long term. They're looking growth. They're looking retention. They're looking at all the numbers. That's the coaching type range. We're looking at the numbers. We're looking at the feedback. How is the performance? Then you go down to you go down the ranks, and slowly the outlook tends to be shorter term. But it
Right.
also tends to get, unfortunately, in business, the top down, it goes long term to short term, but it also goes from group mentality to me mentality. The further you go down the list, it typically becomes a me mentality. How dare I
Yeah.
have to walk out here and hand this person his food? Like, I didn't choose that for you. Like, sorry. Like, but
Yeah.
for you to take it out on me, like, that's perspective, right? It's perspective. Obviously, you're not operating at an elite level as a group inside of that restaurant. You're, as a fast food restaurant, you are not optimizing the performance if it takes 30 minutes for me to get some chicken fingers. Right? But I understand things happen. However, again, there's certain aspects of it where you can just change something and examine it and look at yourself, look at the team, look at what's going on, and understand, like, whoo, we missed the boat on that one, didn't we? Right? And in the moment, make a change and say, man, I got to snap out of this. You're 0 for 3 at the plate. Man, I got to snap out of this. And then you come through in a big moment and get a hit. Did you have the best average day? No. But when it mattered, you performed for the team and you won the game.
Yeah, that I didn't think about that, but that is a really good analogy. That I think this sums up the whole entire idea of perspective. 1 for 3 day will completely change your mood depending on when it happens. If you get a hit in the very first inning, it could be just a jam shot single up the middle, and then you strike out another 2 times, you are going to be so pissed off the rest of the day and probably want to go hit again and like just work and grind. But if we flip it, your first 2 at bats were strikeouts, but you walk it off on a jam shot single, you feel like you're on top of the world. Yet from a results perspective, that was the exact same thing.
Man, I think that's a perfect way to wrap it up, is just both of us getting to that point where we're just like, all right, awesome. We get perspective. We understand. Like, I think that's a perfect place to wrap it up right there. Is just seeing it as, and that's a great example. Is when it happens, it shifts your perspective, right? So, man, I just want to thank you so much for being on here, Matt, and being able to, um, yeah, just being able to share your perspective and everything. And again, shout out, your social media, your social media platforms, handles, website, whatever. Go ahead and shout it out one more time. We'll put the links in the description, but go ahead and shout it out as well. Unfortunately, we lost Matt's audio during this portion of the recording, but you can find Matt on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube with the handle of ATS Performance. Man, I thank you so much for your time, and listeners, thank you guys for tuning in. We're going to come back next week with a little shift. We've been on a sports kick here for the last few weeks, and we're going to get back to the business side of things and talk to somebody in the business world and get that perspective. And I think that it'll come full circle and everybody will kind of get it, why I've gone the sports route, and then come back to business, because I do think that performance is performance regardless of where it's at. I think athletes typically make really good business people and performers in all things, but I think we're going to see the same concepts come out when we talk on the business side again. So stay tuned till next week. Thank you for joining. It's the Original Savage Podcast. Let's go.